Nothing changes the momentum of a football game more than an interception returned for a touchdown, and no one in the history of the NFL has returned more than my guest tonight. Roderick Kevin Woodson combined hard work with his natural talent to become one of the most feared defensive backs in the game. Drafted 10th overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's a 6-time All-Pro. He was a Defensive Player of the Year and a Super Bowl champion. But before leading the league in interceptions at the age of 37, did you know he helped his dad clean movie theaters at night, was a world-class hurdler, and once played offense, defense, and special teams in the same game for Purdue? Tonight, we'll learn what makes this undeniable icon who he is, a man who once said, "If you can't dream and hope, I don't know why you're here." Please welcome Pro Football Hall of Famer, Rod Woodson. Roderick Woodson. Did your mom tell you why she named you Roderick?
She said Roderick meant famous, which I don't know if it does or not, but that's why it's one of the reasons and Kevin is named after one of her brothers.
So that's a little pressure to put on you that you're going to be famous, you're going to be great.
It was, but you know, I really didn't ask what my name meant until later in life anyway.
Grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah.
What's the late 60s like for you, Fort Wayne, Indiana?
My dad is from the South. My mom is from Indiana. Growing up I was born in 65, got 2 older brothers. Growing up in Indiana biracial, you realize that family's not a relative because there's relatives that dislike this. We had my dad's side of the family who is from the South, and his father was on a plantation. And so they didn't like us because we were half white. And then I had my father's side, my mother's side, and her maiden name was Dorflin. He's German. They didn't like us because we were half black. And we learn at an early age what family is. And family is not always a relative. Sometimes it's your friends, your neighbors who took us in and believed in who we were as people. It was irrelevant of our skin color. And growing up in a small town like that in Fort Wayne, Indiana, people wanted us to choose one side or the other. Are you black? Are you white? And I'm like, I can't choose. I am what I am. So it's like you grew up trying to figure out, where do I belong? So it was I think it was eye-opening for a young person at that age to grow up in Indiana.
How do you process this, that both sides have a problem with you?
It does, and it was unfortunate because my biological grandfather, I didn't call him, I said, every time he came to our house, I would tell my mother, "Your dad's here." I never called him grandfather.
Well, your brother Joe said flat out he was a racist.
Oh, he was. But he still loved my mother, and he helped us. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. We're like a lot of people in different rural areas and across the country that we had to pick and choose. Sometimes, we got our lights going to stay on, or we're going to keep the heat on. And sometimes we would heat our house up, and it wasn't a real big house. I only had 1 bedroom for the boys, 1 bedroom for my mom and dad, a little kitchen, a little bathroom, a little living room. But we would heat our house up with the stove.
Did you have incidents growing up as far as race goes?
We had an incident with the KKK. And we had it from the KKK and the Black Panthers, because the Black Panther movement was going on. And the KKK, somebody came to our house. I think I was 10, 11 at the time. Somebody came to our house. Our dog started barking. And then around 1:30 in the morning, I woke up. I see these flames coming from the back of our house. And it was right by our bedroom. And I ran into my mom and dad, said the house is on fire. We all got out, and they came in, and it was arson. And then probably a week later, we get an envelope or a letter in the mail from the KKK saying, if you guys don't get your racist or get your mixed XYZs out of here, we're going to do more to you.
All right, so how are you trying to process this?
As a kid, it really didn't resonate because I'm like, why would people do that? You know, not really knowing who the KKK was, not really not knowing who the Black Panthers were.
But mom and dad did.
Mom and dad knew, and they never really talked about it in front of us. So, you know, the next day I was back outside, going down the street, playing with Eddie Townsend on the other, who was on Chestnut Street. And we were down at the park playing basketball and baseball and going to Memorial Park and swimming in the summer times. That's all we did. So they never really talked about the issues that we had or they were having to the kids on a daily basis.
Your mom run into moments?
She did. So she was pregnant with my oldest brother, or excuse me, my middle brother, Jamie. And as she was walking down the street, somebody came to the back of her, back behind her, and knocked her out unconscious. She's laying in the street for hours.
Pregnant.
And nobody helped her.
But dad never sat you down to say, let me just set you straight on what's going on, so then you can sort of arm yourself in whatever way you needed to,
No,
you and your brothers?
Because you know, at the end of the day, I think they were trying to protect us in the sense that they didn't want us to grow up so fast. We knew, I think, more than they thought. But at the end of the day, it didn't bother us, just for the fact that, you know, the people that, you know, his side of the family or her side of the family that didn't like us, I wasn't around them. And I didn't spend any time with them individuals. That's the one thing I learned growing up in that type of environment, that it's not a person that's always related to you is going to be the closest people to you in your life.
What did you learn from your dad?
He taught me how to work hard. I think that's the main thing I got from my dad. He had two jobs. He worked at International Harvester for quite a while until they moved the plant. They closed the plant in Indiana. But my dad, his second job was he worked as a janitor for the 3 movie theaters that we had in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And then we used to go with him to the movie theaters, and he used to make us clean. So we had to blow all the popcorn and all that stuff. So that's like why today I go to movie theaters and I hate people leaving all their popcorn and their drinks on the ground. Like I pick up all my stuff because I know at the end of the day, somebody has to clean that. So he worked his butt off for us to give us a better life. And we didn't know we didn't have things. We didn't have a lot of money, but we made what was due. You know, I started playing football when I was 9 years old because my brothers played. And my mom and dad never missed a practice, never missed a game. Everything they had to do to help us as kids succeed and give us a better life than what they had, they were going to do, and he was going to do. And for me, he just gave me the foundation of what work really is. You know, it's like, you know, I played football and I worked out. That's not work. Going to a factory, seeing somebody come back and their whole face is just covered with oil and dirt and they're barely getting paid, that's work. The blue collar mentality is all I know. And I know that, you know, our country was built on blue collar workers.
But you look back wondering, you're going through all of this, why didn't they move out of Fort Wayne?
There was no place to move. You know, we used to go down to Gallatin, Tennessee, you know, in the mid-'70s, and it was still separated down there, still segregation down there. And you would see white-only water fountain, black-only water fountain. We would go, the swimming pools were white-only. We couldn't go swimming to the swimming pool. We loved to swim. The first thing I did in my whole life, competitive, was swim. We swam at Memorial Park. So we would love to go swimming, but when we went down to Gallatin, Tennessee, to see my grandmother, we could never go to the swimming pool.
You were considered black in Tennessee.
I mean, I'm considered black anywhere. People don't see me and say, that is a dark-skinned white guy. I just don't think that register with people. So that's like,
He's got a nice tan.
Yeah, he is very tan.
Yeah. What did your mom teach you? What did Linda teach you?
Mom she was a no-nonsense, red-headed German woman. You know, I think what my parents really gave me was just to work. Every time you go to practice, whatever you're doing, never be outworked by the next individual.
Do you remember your first football team?
First team I played for was the Powell Raiders, and I had a great coach in Dave Rohde, who made it fun. And that's why I became a true Raider fan, because I had the old Lester Hayes. Remember, I don't know if everybody remember the Lester
Stick 'em.
Hayes had the long, the tape over his arm, had to
Yeah.
stick him down the tape, and he had the long towel on the ground. He had his Jerry Curl juice in his hair, and his hands is out like that. I had that poster in my room.
When did you know you had talent?
We used to, so Reynolds Street always played against Chestnut and McCormick, which is a projects area, with football, baseball, basketball. We ran track against each other because we ran around the block. But I raced my brother, my oldest brother, from telephone pole to telephone pole every year. And I think I was about 10-ish, 12-ish, somewhere around there. And I was like, let's do it. About halfway through the race, midway through, I'm start reeling him in. I'm like, oh, I'm catching him. Like the years before, I could never catch him. And I start catching him, and then I just like blew by him and beat him by like 10 yards. And I'm like, oh, I can run, I'm fast. And that was like my time where it gave me a little validation that I was getting better, I was getting faster. But then as I did that, I quit swimming for a memorial, and I started running AAU track that year. And that's where my track career started, when I was 12 years old.
Sophomore year, you quit football. Why?
My coaches were cussing at me, yelling at me. And, it was like, my dad doesn't talk to me that way, my mother doesn't talk to me that way. Either respect me or I'm out. And he kept cussing, I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And I walked off the field, took my helmet off, and I quit. It was probably 3 games into the season. And then my track coach, the next day, came back out, Jim Grinnell, who was a really good mentor to me, comes over and goes, never let an individual take your love of what you love to do, whatever it is, away from you because of their attitude. Just don't let that happen. He put a little sense into me. It's like, just don't let anybody, you want to play, you want to play, so go back and apologize. Apologize to your coach. And I went back probably like a week later. I apologized to him. He apologized for talking to me that way. He kept talking to me that way. I didn't quit again. But it just made me realize that sometimes coaches are trying to get you to be something that you're not at the point, trying to find something else inside of you. And, football is a testosterone-driven sport, so they think they have to break you down to build you up. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of the love on them, believe in them, tell them how good they are, tell them how much better they can be if they did X, Y, Z, and then watch them grow.
The importance of multiple sports, swimming, track, football, was what?
You had to. I mean, we're north of the Mississippi River. You can't play football all year, even though we tried, because we would play tackle football in the snow. But I just think what it does for me, what it did was like it helped me fire different muscles groupings. In swimming, it fires all your muscles. That's why I love track, because I was better in track than I was in football. I was, my sophomore year, I was, I think, 7th in the state in the highs. I was 2nd in the lows. Then my junior year, I won. My junior year in high school football, I wasn't even, I don't mention all-state my junior year, but I was all-state in track.
Junior year, you're playing safety. When do you start thinking about getting a scholarship?
I knew I wanted to play in the Big Ten because I wanted to be around my family. So I went to Illinois, I went to Wisconsin, I went to Michigan, and then I was looking at IU, and at IU, Lee Corso was a long-time, well-known coach, now worked for ESPN for his longest time. Lee is driving down to see me. He knocks at my door. He said, hey, I'm Lee Corso, come to see you. But Rod, I just need to tell you before I walk in the door, I just found out I got fired over the radio.
On the radio?
On the radio. He heard it, that he got fired in his car, driving from Bloomington, Indiana to Fort Wayne, Indiana, on the radio. But I tell you what, he was a stand-up guy. He came in my house and he told me all the reasons I should go to IU. And I just looked at him and said, Coach, They just fired you on the radio. I'm not going to IU. I'm not going to visit. If they did that to you, I can't imagine what they'll do to me. And then I went to Purdue. Leon Burnett was the coach, and Leon was his country, with his little twang, talking to me all the time. And we just had fun. But the one thing he said to me is like, if you sign your letter of intent to go play at Purdue, you are starting free safety. My coach, Leon Burnett, lied to me because I wasn't a starting free safety when I first got there. So that lasted, I think, about 3 weeks. And I remember we were just going through summer camp and we're practicing, and Coach Leon was mad at me for some reason, and he starts yelling at me, and I just lost it. Like, don't yell at me again, Coach. And I remember the next play, I hit the tight end as hard as I could hit the tight end. And it wasn't live, but I made it live. And about 3 days later, I became the starting free safety.
What was it like being away from home first time?
Even though I was away, my family still made a way to get to Purdue to watch all the games. Every home game my mom and dad were at, every single one. They were going to be there. But it was tough because I missed my family. I missed my brothers. I missed my mother and father. So at the student union, they'd always have these little carpool shares that you can go to, and get rides, pay X amount of dollars for gas, and get back to Indiana. So in the off season, when I wasn't running track or playing football, I would take my opportunities to get back home.
How were you treated on campus?
The students, I don't think most students knew too much about football at Purdue. We weren't that good anyway. We had a lot of talent. And we had a lot of guys who played in the National Football League. We just couldn't put it together year after year like we did my sophomore year. You know, we played Notre Dame first. I think they were ranked like 3rd in the country. We weren't. We beat them.
And then Purdue plays Ohio State. Ohio State's number 2 in the country. And this is what happens.
Back to throw. No flags. He falls on it. That's all she wrote. An upset. Another one for the Boilermakers. But Purdue has won. They have beaten Ohio State 28-23.
I do remember that
one. How did it feel to beat them?
It felt great. You know, when you're a competitor and you're playing a team sport, and it's always good to be one of those key moments in a game where it just changes the tide, or it seals the deal for your team. That's always a great moment. That's why you play.
Mom comes to campus your junior year. Why?
Wasn't doing what I was supposed to do on a daily basis. And I wasn't showing up where I should have been showing up, when I should have been showing up, doing the work I should have been doing.
You start to believe the hype?
Maybe, because after my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I was a parade All-American. And then, you know, maybe starting to feel too good about yourself. But she brought me, my good German mom, came back down to campus to let me know that you're not all that. Like, do what you're supposed to do, be what you're supposed to be, or your dad's coming down here.
And he's bringing the belt.
Okay, Dad, I don't want to disappoint. And I didn't want to disappoint my family. And at that point in my life, you know, juniors didn't come out really back then. So, you know, I really thought, you know, in a couple years, and maybe I can take care of my family. Somehow, some way, you know, my dad can quit working.
It's a lot of pressure on you, too.
Yeah, because he worked so hard to make it for us. And then he, you know, I just wanted to give him something that he deserved.
And are you starting to realize it at this point? That you could be the ticket for something like that?
Yeah, yeah. You know, my dad was my guy. I mean, most guys are mama boys. And those are my two other brothers. My brothers were mama boys.
What was it about Dad?
I think just the way he carried himself. I kind of modeled myself after him. Just with the fact that he didn't take life real serious. You know, he had fun in what he was doing. He did the best he can.
Worked hard.
He busted his butt for his family. And to give back to him was everything I wanted. And once I started realizing that, you know, I wanted it more. Not for me, but for him. Because I think it was around my junior year where International Harvester left Fort Wayne.
So he's out of a job.
No job, no money. No money's coming in the house. And that's when I realized I had to be, since I had been given the situation, I had to be the person to help the family in some capacity.
You hire an agent, Norby Walters.
Norby Walters is pretty slick. That was the same year my dad lost his job. So Norby Walters, Lloyd Bloom, agency comes into our house in Indiana. They put down a boatload of money sitting right at the table. Didn't want to do it. And, you know, my mom started crying and I'm like, but I have to do it. Don't want to, but I'll do it for you guys. So I took the money and regretted it the whole time.
What did your dad say?
He didn't want me to do it, but I told him, you know, I have to. I mean, it's the only way you guys can make it. So we took the money, I took the money, and they gave me kind of an allotment every month for the family. And my mom and dad took it. I never received any of the money. I gave it straight to them.
Norby and his partner would prey on athletes who
So what they did,
didn't have money.
Or
didn't come from money.
Yeah, I mean, Norby Walter, Lloyd Bloom came from the entertainment side of it. And they said they're going to come in, they're going to have 2 or 3 guys that they were going to represent. A couple first rounders, and that's it. Well, then when I went to the Aloha Bowl in Hawaii, which was the all-star game back in the day for, seniors, I realized that everybody was being represented by Norby Walters and Lloyd Bloom. I'm like, and I counted like 15 guys. I'm like, and I went to Norby Walters and Lloyd Bloom and said, dude, you lied to me. You told me you're going to represent 2 or 3 guys, and that was it. You lied.
Plus, Norby has connections to the Colombo crime syndicate.
Right.
So,
which we end up finding out after the fact.
But it cost you your eligibility in track.
Cost my eligibility in
Not
track.
in football.
Not in football.
because
The season was over.
Yeah, came out after.
It came out afterwards, and that was my first year. I ran indoor track every year at Purdue. Won the Big Tens. I was going to run my senior year finally outside, outdoors. I got to run in one meet, and then I got suspended. So I couldn't run my senior year. So I called Eugene Parker, who becomes my agent, and I've known Eugene forever because Eugene went to Purdue before I did. And I called him and said, Gene, I got myself in trouble. I need you to get me out of it. Ran the whole story down to him, and he got me out of it.
1987, drafted by the Steelers. Everybody says you're going top 5. Steelers even say to Tony Dungy, don't even go scouting. Don't even go interviewing. He's not going to be there. All of a sudden, you fall to 10. Steelers take you.
I fall to the place I should be. Coming from Fort Wayne, Indiana has 3 rivers. Pittsburgh Steelers, or the Pittsburgh has 3 rivers. My high school team is black and gold. My college team is old black and gold, right? And I was like, it was meant to be.
But you hold out. You want to be paid top 5 money? What are you holding out because of?
I didn't want to be top 5, but I wanted to be paid reasonable to where I was drafted at. And it was below the market of being at 10, where they were trying to get me at. And, you know, they would call me and I'm like, no, you know, I believe I'm worth X, Y, Z. You don't. Then I'll go back into the draft next year, because I think you have to take a stand in your beliefs, and let whatever you're doing, once you believe in it, once you have a conviction of it, it's, you know, you can't waver on that conviction.
But do you feel any pressure that you can sign for $1 million and take care of your family? That you're holding out and you could help them right away?
I could have, but, you know, like I said, that's one of the Woodson traits. We are kind of hard-headed. Once I have a thought in my head and I believe in it wholeheartedly, I'm not going to go away from it. So when I was holding out with the Steelers, I go over to the European circuit.
You go to Zurich, and this is what the race looks like.
You want to have a little fun, we've cited the best, but watch in lane 5, Rod Woodson, because he told the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'll see you later, took off for Europe, and he was their #1 draft choice, and they're not too happy with Mr. Woodson right now.
Greg Foster in the yellow, and he gets out of the blocks in a hurry, as does Mark McCoy of Canada. It is Foster and McCoy, and now Greg Foster really pours it on. Foster in the bright yellow with yellow sleeves is across the finish line.
By the way, you're supposed to go over the hurdles, not knock them down, Rod.
I know, but that's...
You played football, like you ran football running track.
I did.
You hold out, you eventually sign.
Yeah.
Hold out for 94 days. You sign for $2 million. So you get twice what they were offering.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
I thought I did the right thing. And, you know, eventually I got to play the sport that I loved again and play with one of the best organizations. I say it's the best organization probably to exist in pro football. I think I was probably there for 1 week. Coach Noel was like, talent's not everything. And, you know, when you're 21, talent is everything to you. And he was like, talent's not everything. He said, because everybody has talent in the league. Everybody that gets drafted is talented in some form or fashion. Some bigger, faster, stronger than somebody else, but everybody's talented. That's why you're drafting you. He said, but the people who separate themselves from the good to the average are the players who can, it's 2-to-1 mental to physical. So the guys who can take all their self-study, the information they're getting from their coaches, from their peers, and apply that back in practice every day, and have that recall back in the games, week in and week out, those guys separate themselves from the average player to the good players to the great players. And when he first said it, I'm like, yeah, well, blah, blah, yeah, blah, 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 whatever. He hired a guy named Rod Russ, and we had our walkthroughs inside our locker room. And I wasn't paying attention. And Rod Russ cussed me out. You MFer, you better listen to me. And then after the walkthrough, I went over to him, I apologized, and he basically challenged me to become a better player than just an athlete. And he said, if you really want to learn the game, you come with me, I'll take you in my room, and I'll show you what offenses do to defensive players, or defenses in general, to disguise things. And he shows me how it's irrelevant of the personnel groupings, but they'll run the same plays from different personnel groupings, and they'll build the formation differently by moving. This time it's a receiver, this time it's a running back, this time it's a tight end, but in this final formation, they're gonna run this route. And that green light clicked on. I was like, you have to be kidding me. This is all they do?
Here is Rod's first career NFL interception.
Now after that, so I'm pointing as I'm going in. I'm holding up the football and I'm pointing. So I go to the sideline. And me, Joe Green, is our defensive line coach. Everybody's patting me on the back and giving me high fives. And me, Joe, comes over and goes, don't ever do that again. I just look at him and go, yes, sir. I mean, because he's mean. I mean, it's like, I'd heard Mean Joe, when he shut his door to his defensive line room, I would hear objects being thrown against the wall.
Could have been bodies.
It could have been.
Everything's clicking. Making the Pro Bowl, you've kind of unlocked this secret to playing corner, to playing defense. And then you find out your father is ill?
So my dad had, it runs in the family, high blood pressure runs in the family, sugar diabetes runs in his family, heart disease runs in my mother's side of the family. She's diabetic, but my dad had high blood pressure. And so it was in '92, we were in spring ball, and I get a phone call, and he just had an aneurysm, and he did come out of it, he was fine. So I left right after practice, drove back to Indiana. He was good. Probably 3 or 4 days later, he's still in the hospital, and something went back through his brain, some type of little virus came back into his brain and kind of wiped him out. And he was on a ventilator. We chose to pull him off 2 days after.
How tough that decision?
I didn't want to pull him off. I wanted, I'll pay whatever it is. I don't care how much it is. Maybe he'll come back. And the rest of the family didn't want to, so we eventually just pulled the plug. That was tough.
Did you get a chance to say goodbye?
No, not really. Not the way I wanted to.
Got a chance to take care of him, though.
We had a chance. Took care of him, took care of my mother. As soon as I signed my contract, I brought him a house. Went back there, got him a car, said, you don't got to work again.
But you have these Pro Bowl seasons. You guys are starting to flirt with being good in the playoffs. Then you're named the NFL Defensive Player of the Year.
I take all the individual accomplishments with a grain of salt because it happens every year. Somebody's going to have that award.
Yeah, but it happened to you.
It is, but I'm saying you love the award. You love the people to recognize you that you're doing good. I don't take it too much more serious than that.
When does it start to sink in? I got to win a championship here. This other stuff is nice. I got to win a championship.
I was in Pittsburgh, and
they expect championships.
They do. Our offense wasn't. It was all about Pittsburgh. It was all about the defense. Chuck retires. Dick LeBeau comes in. Bill Cowher comes in. Dom Capers comes in. It's really the defense we start playing is really Dick LeBeau's defense, but Dom Capers is the defense coordinator, and Bill's the head coach. And it really fits who we are because we were so athletic. We just couldn't put it all together. And then
when you lose in the AFC title game,
yeah,
it's just within your reach. The next season, first game of the season, it's the Steelers against the Lions. And this is what happens.
Lions from the 38. Mitchell again swings it out to Barry Sanders. Sanders needs to get to the 45, and he gets to the 46, and he picks up a first down. There's a player's down. That is Rod Woodson for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
We played on AstroTurf. That's like the old AstroTurf. And stupid me, and normally what I would do, if I'm wearing new shoes, I would break them out middle of the week, wear them for 3 or 4 days to get them broken into the ground so they're not so sticky. That was a hot day. I broke them right out of the box. Never done it in my whole career. Never did it after that. And then when I went to plant, as he's cutting back in, I went to plant, and as I hit, my foot stayed straight like this, and my knee turned. And as I felt it, I tried to jump off of it, but it was too. I heard a pop. I never had an injury before that. And when I got up and walked off, and they're like, "What happened?" I said, "Man, I think I popped my ACL." I said, "I'm not really sure. I've never had an injury, but I just heard something inside of me just." I went to the doctors. Doctor said it's 6 months to a year. I looked at Coach Cowher and I said, 4 months, playoffs. I can make it back. And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Coach, I can make it back and play. Leave me a spot open." I mean, one thing I love about Bill, he had enough respect for me, and he left that spot open. So we had my butt off for 4 months, and we were good enough to keep playing and to win and to get to the Super Bowl, not knowing if I ever get to another one.
this is how the Super Bowl turned out.
Aikman knocked away by Rod Woodson as he defended Michael Irvin. So Rod Woodson, many thought he'd never play this year, and he worked and worked after that knee surgery after the first game of the season, and he made one of those typical great corner plays of his. Touchdown! Final score, Dallas 27, Pittsburgh 17.
How tough was that loss?
Oh, it's always tough when you get to that point because you want to be the best, and that confetti is somebody else's. It's not your confetti.
So now you're 31, and Steelers' contract offer is not great, and you decide you're going to walk.
On draft day, I get a phone call. I'm not going to say the name of the person. I get a phone call and say, "Are you going to take our deal?" And I go, "I spent 10 years with you guys, and you guys are going to call me and ask me to make the decision in 30 seconds if I'm going to take the deal or not?" I hung the phone up. That was the last time I talked to him. And I think what happens when a player is with the team for so long, the team takes them for granted.
Yeah.
And I just thought they were taking me for granted.
You go to the 49ers.
I signed a one-year deal trying to chase the ring. That was the year that Jerry got hurt. So we played Tampa the first game of the year. Jerry gets hurt with his knee. Steve gets a concussion. And T.O. was on the team, but T.O. was he wasn't T.O. yet. So we didn't have that power on the offensive side. We ended up being 13-3 at the number 1 seed in the NFC. The team was good. Just couldn't beat Green Bay. But at the end of the day, as soon as the free agency began, Marvin Lewis called me, who was a defense coordinator in Baltimore. And Marvin was like, "Listen, man, we got a really talented football team here, especially on defense. We just don't have a leader yet. I need you to come in and to teach these guys what it's like to work." Well, when I came into the locker room, all the DBs were over here, the linebackers are over here, and I'm sitting in between Ray Lewis and Peter Bower with the linebackers. I'm like, okay, I guess he wants me to talk to Ray. So, me and Ray that's my guy. So I started talking to him about leadership, just being a type of person that you want to be off the field, on the field. I mean, he was already a hard worker. He led the team in tackles. He just needed to learn when to speak and when not to speak to the players. Because they didn't listen to me because they saw me, hey, I played with you on Tecmo Bowl. I'm like, oh, come on, really? They call me Mr. Woodson. I mean, when you become the old man in the locker room, they treat you like that. So they listened to me to a certain degree, but I knew they were going to listen to Ray. My thing to Ray is like, this is your team. You got drafted here. I'm not trying to take your leadership, but you need to take them and really, you got to challenge them to go to the next level. So if you want to get to where, if we want to get to the Super Bowl, we got to start meeting on our own. Forget the coaches. I mean, the coaches are going to give us so much, but at the end of the day, when we go on the field, it's about us. It's about how are we going to play, how are we comfortable talking to each other, and how can we get to where we want to win? And then we have to run to the ball. So as we started doing it, the first year, it was like, second year, got a little bit better. The third year, everybody bought into it. Everybody was there, nobody complained, everybody was talking, and you could see it. But we knew how good we were on defense. We had a lot of swagger. We knew nobody was going to outrun us. Nobody was going to outwork us. And we knew that you think you were ready for us until you played against us because we had a lot of speed. And we made that our trademark that year.
You start out the season 2000, 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think at the time?
Can we get a better offense? I mean, our defense was playing really good. It just,
you guys went a 5-game stretch without the offense scoring a touchdown?
And we still won 2 or 3 of those games. I mean, that's pretty good. When your offense is not scoring a touchdown and you can still win a game, you got a pretty good defense.
And then you won the last 7 games in a row going into the playoffs.
Our offense kind of clicked it in, and Trent took over. We really knew if we can get past Tennessee, because that's our nemesis.
Steve McNair,
Eddie George. If we can get past Tennessee, we can beat everybody else. That year, we played Tennessee in the postseason, that divisional round, and they threw the ball to Eddie George. He got like a little option route against Ray, the leader of the Baltimore Ravens, to being one of the better linebackers to ever play in the National Football League. That was his coming out party. After we beat Tennessee, we played the Raiders in Oakland for the AFC Championship game. We knew the winner of that could win the whole thing. But then once we saw, and this is no lie, me, Ray, Goose, all our leaders on defense sat down and watched like half the game of the Giants. We were like, they're not getting past the 50-yard line against us.
At free safety from Purdue, number 26, Rod Woodson. And that will bring Super Bowl 35 to an end. The final score of Super Bowl 35, Baltimore 34 and the New York Giants 7. And what a year that caps for the Baltimore Ravens.
Champion. What did your mom say after that Super Bowl?
I mean, it was everybody. It's like, my mother was there, my brothers were there, my wife was there, my kids were there. And we were all ecstatic because, when the confetti's yours, it feels so much better. I already felt the defeat of losing to Dallas. But nobody can really describe to you what it's like once you win.
I want to ask you what this quote means, a quote that we singled out that's on the wall. If you can't dream and hope, I don't know why you're here.
Yeah, that's my dad's quote. He used to say it all the time. And they always wanted us to believe in who we are. And for some reason, as I was, being a kid throughout my adult life, I've always believed in who I was. I always believed that whatever I thought I could do, that I would accomplish it eventually. And it's something, I think he probably always saw that somewhere along the line, but he always had to give back to his family. But he was an uneducated man. He never finished high school, my dad. But he always spoke education to us as kids. My dad couldn't swim, but he taught us how to swim because he picked us up by our swim trunks in the pool and said, you better kick your legs and move your arms because I'm getting ready to let you go. So you're either going to swim or you're going to hit the bottom. And he did it over and over and over throughout the summer, and we learned how to swim. So he always challenged us, and he always dared to do something that he never did.
You leave the Ravens, and you go to the Raiders. Full circle. First team's the Raiders when you were a kid, and now the Oakland Raiders.
And I can say this now. So when I was in Baltimore, we win a Super Bowl, come back the following year. We lose to divisional round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I go to the Pro Bowl. Willie Brown's at the Pro Bowl. And I just remember walking past Willie at the Aloha Stadium. I walk by him, I go, I'm going to be free, Willie. Tell Al to come and get me. And I keep on walking. I didn't turn around. A week after free agency, Al Davis called me. He said, do you want to play for the Raiders? I'm like, absolutely. That's my bucket list. I mean, my bucket list was always play for the Raiders. I mean, that's been my team since I've been growing up. So when I got there in 2002, that was a bitter or sweet moment for me in my life.
You lead the league in interceptions with 8, 2 pick sixes that year. So you're 37, no doubts.
Well, they say the game is for the young. I disagree. I think older players can still play extremely well at a high level. And the great thing is, Chuck Bresnahan was our defensive coordinator. He gave me a lot of great opportunities to make plays. And
then you guys go to the Super Bowl, face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So John Gruden, your former coach, is now coaching against you. What are you thinking going into that Super Bowl?
We believed that we could beat them. I think we had a game plan. Remember, this is the last time that there wasn't a break in between the championship game and the Super Bowl. we had the oldest team in the National Football League that didn't get a break. So we went from 1 week straight to the next. We get in the night before the game. This is Saturday night, and I've never heard this said before. Bill gets up there and he was like, "Hey guys, I've been thinking about it. We're gonna throw the football. This is how we got there. We're gonna throw it no matter what." And I looked at, I think it was Dwayne Starks. I said, "You can chalk this one up, man. We're not gonna win this game. You don't change your game plan the night before a game." And the worst part about it is that I lost to Warren Sapp. Because he doesn't let you forget. He's talking, him and Simeon are talking so much noise after the game. I'm like, oh my gosh, shoot me in the foot. Why don't you?
Why did you know 2004 was time to retire?
After training camp, they have masseuse there. A lot of massage therapists and whatnot are sitting there. They say, "Hey, you can get it for free." I've never done this my whole career. I've never got the massage, never had anybody like stretch me out. But I said, "Oh, okay, I've never done it. Let me go do it." I go do it. And as the guy's rubbing my leg out, he bends my knee and this pain shoots through my body. I'm like, oh my God. And I jump up off the table. At that time, I'm not thinking of anything of it. I'm like, I'm done. I go to meetings, wake up the next morning, my knee is like a balloon. He breaks the scar tissue off. And I was like, do I have another microfracture surgery or is it time to retire? And I was just like, it's time to retire.
2009 Hall of Fame. You get the call.
I get a phone call. And they were like, "You made it. You're a Hall of Famer." That to me is remarkable. I think it's still so surreal that I'm there. I was a little kid, wanted to be with my brothers, started playing for the Power Raiders, loved the sport, and one thing led to another. I just got better and better and better. And I had the opportunity to play in the National Football League for 17 years.
What's next?
Now I'm back at the NFL Network. Just signed with those guys, matter of fact, this week. So it's going to be fun being back to my second family. And at the end of the day, I'm just talking football.
Got some fun questions here.
Yes, sir.
What pisses you off?
Oh, my two pet peeves in life are overly talkative people who never shut up. Like never, like they just won't let you think.
Like Warren Sapp.
Yes. Not saying Warren himself, but it could be, yes. And people who completely stop at a stop sign when nobody else is around. Like, dude, there's nobody here. You roll through the stop sign.
Give me something on your bucket list.
I want to cage dive with great whites. I want to do that. I'm a scuba diver, but I don't want to open dive with any sharks. I might poop myself if I saw a shark. If I saw a shark underwater.
Your father would be proud. Ended up third overall in interceptions, NFL history, the most pick sixes in NFL history, the most fumble recoveries in NFL history, and undeniably one of the great, not defensive backs, but football players of all time. Rod Woodson.
Appreciate it.